Welcome to Part 12 of our Physical Therapy Masterclass Explainer. So, for those of you literally in the trenches every day, medical coders, billers, physical therapy clinicians, you know exactly how frustrating it is when a claim gets rejected over a tiny math error. Well, today we're going to completely demystify the CMS 8-minute rule. We'll be locking in your understanding of calculation thresholds, making total sense of those 15-minute blocks, and tackling time bumbling. Basically, we're going to ensure your billing is strictly compliant and stop those claim denials right in their tracks. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, an intro to timed codes. Second, the 8-minute threshold grid. Third, step-by-step time allocation. And fourth, time bundling and RVUs.
Okay, Section 1, Intro to Timed Codes, establishing the foundation. Let's start with the basics.
Before we can even think about doing any math, we actually need to understand what triggers the 8-minute rule in the first place. You see, there's a really fundamental difference we have to look out for. On one hand, we've got untimed or service-based codes. These are billed based on the number of times a procedure is performed, which honestly is usually just once per day. The exact time spent? Totally irrelevant for your total time calculations. For example, if you do 15 minutes of mechanical traction, you simply bill that as 1 unit. But on the flip side, we have timed codes. For these, exact minutes absolutely must be documented in the medical record, and the CPT time rule heavily applies. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the 8-minute rule applies exclusively to time-based codes. Think constant attendance and therapeutic procedures. And remember, the time we are counting here is strictly the time the patient is being actively treated using skilled therapy modalities. If it isn't skilled therapy time, you don't count it, period. Moving right along to Section 2, the 8-minute threshold grid, your billing cheat sheet. Let's look at how your documented skilled time translates directly into billable units. Now notice how the threshold kicks in right at minute 8. That's right, you don't actually need a full 15 minutes to bill a unit. Providing a skilled time-based service for between 8 and 22 minutes gives you that vital first unit. Moving up, 23 to 37 minutes gets you 2 units, and 38 to 52 minutes yields 3 units. As your total skilled therapy time increases, you can see how you steadily unlock additional units in distinct 15-minute increments. Once you hit that 53-minute mark, you cross into 4 units, all the way up to 97 minutes, which allows for 6 billable units. It's basically a continuous, logical, mathematical ladder. And capping off the top end of the ranges, we go all the way up to 8 units for 113 to 127 minutes of total time. You really need to internalize these thresholds. Why? Because they dictate the absolute maximum units you are legally allowed to bill for a single date of service for a single discipline. It is your foundational framework. Now for Section 3, step-by-step time allocation, the mathematical framework. Let's make this actionable. So we know the overall thresholds now, but let's be real, clinical life is rarely just a single isolated service. We have all stared at a chart, scratching our heads, wondering where exactly that extra minute goes. How do we legally assign units to specific codes when multiple different timed services happen in one visit? I'm going to give you a foolproof 3-step method to organize your math and allocate your units with absolute precision. It boils down to total minutes, full blocks, and remaining minutes. Let's break those down. Step 1 is literally the golden rule here. Before you even think about looking at individual codes, you must add up every single minute spent on timed modalities for that patient on that day. You take this grand total back to the threshold grid we just talked about. That total time gives you your ceiling. It tells you the absolute maximum number of units you can bill. Okay, step 2. Now you can look at your individual service codes. You're going to pull out any full 15-minute blocks within each specific code. This is super important because each full 15-minute block automatically earns at least 1 billable unit. So you subtract those blocks from your total time for that code, and what you're left with are your remainders. Which brings us to step 3. If your overall total time allows for more units than you've assigned so far, you have to decide where those extra units go. And the rule is simple. You assign them to the service that has the highest number of leftover or remaining minutes. Let's actually see this in action. It makes so much more sense. Imagine your patient receives exactly 47 total minutes of timed codes. According to our grid, 47 minutes falls right into the 3-unit range. But the clinician performed 2 distinct services, 24 minutes of 97112 and 23 minutes of 9710. Step 2 says extract the 15-minute blocks. Well, both codes have 1 full 15-minute block,
meaning both are guaranteed 1 unit. But wait, we're allowed 3 units total, so we have 1 unit left to give. Where does it go? Look at the remainders. 97112 has 9 leftover minutes. 97110 has 8. Code 97112 rightfully wins that extra third unit because 9 is greater than 8. So, at the end of the day, you'd build 2 units of 97112 and 1 unit of 9710. Simple, right?
Next up, Section 4, Time Bundling and RVUs, Navigating the Edge Cases, because the math isn't always that clean.
What happens when individual services actually fall short of that magical 8-minute mark? This is where time bundling swoops in to save the day. If a clinician performs 2 different time-based services for, say, under 8 minutes each, you don't just lose that time forever. You can actually bundle their times together. If their combined time reaches that crucial 8-minute threshold, boom, you can bill for at least 1 unit.
But here's the catch. When you bundle, or when remaining minutes are exactly tied and you're maxed out on total allowed units, you need a tiebreaker. And that tiebreaker is the relative value unit, or RVU. You can think of the RVU as basically reflecting the clinical intensity of a service. The rule of thumb you need to remember is that lower RVU codes bundle into higher RVU codes. You always want to maximize the legitimate value of the session.
Let's pose a very common coding puzzle. Imagine you have 2 distinct codes, and the clinician spent exactly 8 minutes on each. 8 plus 8 is 16 total minutes. What do you do?
Well, think back to our threshold grid. A total time of 16 minutes falls firmly into the 1 unit bracket. Even though both of those services hit the 8-minute minimum individually, your total time caps you at a single unit. Therefore, you must report solely the code with the highest RVUs. This makes sure you stay strictly compliant with Medicare guidelines while still appropriately capturing the highest value for the skilled work you actually performed.
Let's look at another highly complex scenario that honestly trips up billing departments all the time. A clinician does 7 minutes of neuromuscular reeducation, 7 minutes of therapeutic exercise, and 7 minutes of manual therapy. That's a total of 21 minutes of timed codes. But under the 8-minute rule, 21 total minutes restricts you to exactly 1 billable unit. You absolutely cannot bill for all 3. You've got to bundle them, look at the RVUs for those 3 CPT codes, and select the single best code with the highest RVU to attach that 1 unit to.
Finally, Section 5, Next Steps and Teaser, Advancing Your Masterclass.
Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today. We've built a rock-solid mathematical foundation for calculating your thresholds, allocating your blocks, and handling complex ties with RVUs. But as every coder out there knows, real-world clinical charts are rarely this neat. So get ready, because in Part 13, we're taking the training wheels off. We are going to push these rules to their absolute limits by analyzing chaotic, real-world case studies and highly complex multi-service scenarios that you will actually see on your desk.
You definitely won't want to miss that one. But before you go, ask yourself a question. Is your clinic currently leaving legitimate, billable units on the table simply because of a math tiebreaker? Really think about it. It happens more often than you'd think. Until next time, keep your math sharp, ensure your clinical documentation is absolutely pristine, and decode healthcare with Harshal.